Hi y'all, I've had a lot of requests asking what my current meal plan is or what I currently eat throughout the day. So I thought I'd take some time today and show you from meal 1 to meal 6 what I'm eating for each meal and what the macros are for each meal. Do keep in mind that my meal plan is vegetarian and gluten-free friendly. If you aren't vegetarian, you're welcome to throw any meat of your choice into any of the meals that I share with you today. If you're interested in me filming another video and going over my favorite vegetarian gluten-free cheat meals or my favorite vegetarian gluten-free snacks, let me know in the comments below and I'll make sure to film that for you. Until then, I appreciate your support. I hope you enjoy the video and thanks for watching. So I usually schedule my first meal anytime between 5:30 and 6 a.m. Some people like to have a few meals down prior to going to the gym. I personally have found that I have my best workouts on an empty stomach, so I steer clear of eating or drinking anything prior to going to the gym. When I do finish working out, I try and make sure that the carbs in my first meal I intake within the first 20 minutes. It's really important when you are eating carbohydrates post-workout that you try and eat them within the first 20 minutes so that your body utilizes them to its advantage. I'll have all the macros for each meal listed on the left-hand side of the screen. So if you want to know my exact carbohydrates, protein, and fats for each meal, they'll be right over there for you to look at, take note of, screenshot, whatever you'd like to do. As far as the carbohydrates that I include in my first meal, I stick with rice cakes. They are gluten-free and they are very tasty. I can also just throw them in a Ziploc bag and eat them on the way home from the gym if I'm in a hurry. I'll eat 2 of these with my first meal and I'll include that with a protein shake. I am not picky on my protein powder, however, I do really watch the carbohydrates included in each scoop because if I'm very busy throughout the day and I just need to grab a protein shake for a meal replacement or I'm extra hungry that day and I have an additional protein shake, I want to make sure that I'm not throwing my macros for the day too far out, especially with carbohydrates. So the brand that I have loved lately is the MRM brand. I find this at Sprouts, or you can order it on Amazon. I'll include it in a link below if you want to check it out. But I like this because it is vegan and it's keto friendly. So even though I'm not doing a ketogenic diet necessarily, I know that it's going to be very low in carbohydrates, therefore it won't throw my macros too far out of line. I include 1 scoop of this, and then I mix that with almond milk, again, a dairy alternative where I am vegetarian. If you're gluten-free, almond milk is gluten-free. You'll just want to make sure that you stick with the unsweetened brand. Sometimes the sweeteners that they add into like the vanilla or other flavors, they include traces of gluten that could probably cause some problems. Aside from your liquid and your protein powder, there's a couple other things that I like to throw into my smoothies that don't throw my macros too far out of line, but they do, again, make it more filling and a lot more flavorful. One of my favorites is fresh diced strawberries that I have froze either the night before or a week before. They just give it some added flavor, they give it some added texture, and they don't, again, throw my macros completely out of line. You want to be careful with frozen fruit. You can really use any frozen fruit that you like or that appeases to you, but it is very high in carbohydrates and can be very high glycemic, which isn't necessarily the best to be intaking all the time, depending on what type of fruit you choose. So strawberries are always a safe bet. They're low in carbohydrates, they're tasty, and they help fill me up. As far as other additional alternatives, I love my stevia. The liquid stevia is going to be your best friend if you are gluten-free. Again, some powdered stevias, depending on the brand, include traces of gluten, so you just want to be careful with that and probably just stick with the liquid stevia. If you're not worried about being gluten-free and maybe you do like things a little bit sweeter, but you don't want the added calories of sugar or other additional sweeteners, I would just stick with the powdered stevia. It's always been an all-time favorite of mine and it's a classic in any of my smoothies. Last but not least, cinnamon, especially in the morning. It does help with your metabolism, which you can never go wrong with, and it just, again, gives it some added flavor along with a few ice cubes. So that, in a nutshell, is my first meal. To give you a complete rundown, it's really just a few ice cubes, 1 cup of fresh frozen strawberries, 1 scoop of the vanilla protein powder, half a cup of the vanilla almond milk, or the unsweetened almond milk, just depends on the day, and some stevia and cinnamon for taste. Moving on to my second meal of the day, I try and schedule it anytime between 8 and 9 a.m. This is about a 3-hour window from when I first ate, and I try to keep it every 3 hours when I'm eating, basically to help keep me satisfied and also to help keep my metabolism in check. My second meal acts as a filler meal between my first and my third meal, so I usually just keep it to a lean protein and some vegetables as an added filler. For my lean protein, I do use organic eggs and egg whites. Because I'm vegetarian, any type of animal byproduct that I choose to use, I make sure that it's 100% organic. You can find liquid egg whites at really any grocery store, and I only use one whole egg because I want to keep my fats in check with my macros. So for my lean protein in meal 2, I'll do 1 whole egg and 3/4 cup liquid egg whites. Mix the two together and it makes a really delicious omelet. The filler that I choose to use along with my lean protein is zucchini. I saute 2 cups of peeled diced zucchini. It is very macro friendly, it's low in carbs and fat, and it also really helps fill me up, and it tastes good just depending on how you season it. I'll mix that with 1/2 cup of diced onion. Onion is great, it's very aromatic, and it just adds additional flavor to anything that you are eating. And I top that off with some Frank's Red Hot sauce. So altogether, meal in a nutshell is 1 whole egg, 3/4 cup liquid egg whites, 2 cups of diced sauteed zucchini, 1/2 cup of diced onion, and top it off with whatever you would like to. I personally like the Frank's Red Hot sauce, and it's just a perfect filler meal between your first and your third meal, just to keep you full and satisfied. Meal 3, I eat anytime between 10:30 to 11:30. Honestly, it just depends on what I did for exercise that morning and how great my appetite is around that time. I have noticed for myself personally that time in the morning, anytime between 9 to noon, I am at my hungriest. I had my meal 2 around 9 a.m. and usually I'll eat meal 3 as early as 10:30 a.m. and sometimes as late as noon. Again, it just all depends on the day, how hard I had exercised that morning, and how great my appetite is during that 3-hour time frame. For meal 3, I start off with 1 packet of Quaker oatmeal. You are welcome to cook plain oatmeal if you prefer that. For myself, where I usually meal prep for 7 days at a time, it's so much easier for me to just pour in 7 packets in separate containers than cook the oatmeal and portion it out thereafter. So again, all up to you, your preference and what your macros allow you to do. Myself personally, I love the flavored Quaker oatmeals. It's fun to switch it up, try different flavors. Again, I always find myself eating the apples and cinnamon, but it is still nice to add some variety in with it. I mix my apples and cinnamon oatmeal with 1/2 cup of almond milk. If you're vegetarian like myself, it's a great dairy alternative. And also if you're gluten-free, I would just stick with the unsweetened flavor. I mix 1/2 cup of almond milk with my 1 packet of Quaker oatmeal, and then similar to my smoothie, I throw in a couple extra ingredients. Not only do they act as a filler and make it that much more filling, but they also just help give it some additional flavor as well. One of my favorite go-tos is fresh diced strawberries. I usually stick with 1 cup of those with my daily macros. And then I'll throw in some stevia. Again, if you're gluten-free, stick with the liquid stevia and some cinnamon. It's still morning, helps boost your metabolism, and gives it some great flavor. You'll notice with meal 4, up until my last meal of the day, I try and stick primarily with lean proteins and vegetables. I like to try and eat most of my carbs earlier in the day so my body has plenty of time to digest them before I go to bed at night. I usually eat my last set of carbs around 4 p.m. and I go to bed around 8 or 9 p.m. So that gives my body about 4 to 4.5 hours to digest everything that I've ate that day before I go to bed. You'll notice for that reason, meal 4 is primarily vegetables only. It really acts as a filler meal between meals 3 and 5, very similar to meal 2. I like to try and space out my meals, my lighter meals with my heavier meals throughout the day so that I'm not super hungry at the beginning of the day, eating all of my lighter meals and then feeling very lethargic and a lot more tired than normal because I'm eating all my heavier meals in the later portion of the day. Meal 4, I start off with 2 cups of peeled steamed zucchini. Again, very macro-friendly food. It tastes great if you know how to season it, and for myself personally, it's very filling. Along with my 2 cups of steamed zucchini, I'll do 1 cup of mushrooms. You can buy fresh mushrooms, slice them up yourself, and cook them how you'd prefer if your macros allow it. For myself, prepping for 7 days at a time, I like to keep it as simple as possible. So I'll just buy the pre-sliced mushrooms, saute those, and mix them in with the zucchini from there. On top of the zucchini and the mushroom, I do like canned black beans and tomato. I'm careful to rinse my black beans prior to eating them because where I am gluten-free, sometimes there can be preservatives or artificial sweeteners in with the canned syrup, and I want to avoid all risks with that. So I'll rinse my black beans and measure them out accordingly, and I do 1/4 cup of black beans on this meal. Along with the black bean, zucchini, and mushrooms, I dice up 1 medium tomato. I mix that all together and top it off with 1 tablespoon of butter and any seasoning of your choice. Meal 5 is my last carbohydrate intake of the day. That way I know that when I'm finished eating this meal, my body still has plenty of time to digest everything that I've ate throughout the day prior to when I go to bed later that night. So my carbohydrates in meal 5 start with 3/4 cup of plain non-fat Chobani Greek yogurt. Myself personally, I do stick with the Chobani brand on this specific food item because I have compared to store-bought brands or lower end brands, and I've noticed that the carbohydrates are much higher in the lower end brands and the sugars are as well. When I've input that in with my macros, it throws them completely out of line. So I always make sure I buy the Chobani plain non-fat Greek yogurt. Also, another side note on that is if you are gluten-free, you want to make sure you're sticking with plain Greek yogurts and flavoring them yourself, whether it's with stevia or cinnamon or fruit, things you know are safe for you. Sometimes those artificial sweeteners or preservatives that they add into the different flavors for Greek yogurt can have traces of gluten or in fact gluten, and that can create risks. So again, I like to avoid all of that, and I also want to stick within my macros. So the plain Chobani non-fat Greek yogurt 3/4 cup works great. Alongside my 3/4 cup of plain non-fat Greek yogurt, what I choose to flavor it with is stevia, cinnamon, and 1 cup of fresh diced strawberries, very similar to meal 3. Alongside both those, I'll have 2 of my rice cakes, caramel or chocolate, depending on what I'm feeling that day. It helps give me a little spike of energy to get through the remainder of the afternoon while still staying within my macros, and it goes really well with the Greek yogurt. So altogether, meal 5 is 3/4 cup of Greek yogurt with 1 cup of freshly diced strawberries. I season that with stevia and cinnamon, and I eat it alongside 2 rice cakes. Meal 6 for me comes anytime between 6:30 and 7:30. I get home from the office most days around 5:30 to 6 o'clock, and I like to have some time to get settled, take the dogs on a walk, get things taken care of, and then come in the kitchen and cook. However, sometimes I get home and I'm exceptionally hungry and I just need something to fill me up in that time being. This seems to be the time where a lot of people tend to snack, and snacking is what completely destroys your macros and can also put you behind with your goals as far as fitness goes. So I make sure that I leave enough room in my macros that if I want to throw in a quick protein shake, I can, and it doesn't throw me too far out of line. The protein shake is nothing fancy, but it's quick and it fills me up. It's just the almond milk, the protein powder, and some cinnamon and stevia to taste. Super simple, but it does the job. You'll notice with meal 6 that it's primarily lean protein and vegetables. That's because for me personally, I don't want to be eating any carbohydrates within 4 hours of going to bed. However, I don't know about you, but if I have an empty stomach, I do not sleep well. So I made sure that in meal 6, I also have a high amount of fat. That way I'm very full when I'm finished eating, but I'm not lethargic and it won't carry over into my workout the following morning. Meal 6, I start off with dicing half of an onion and letting that saute. And once it's golden brown, I'll go ahead and throw in 2 whole organic eggs and 3/4 cup organic egg whites. Like I'd mentioned when I was explaining meal 2 earlier in the video, any type of animal byproduct that I use, I like to make sure it's organic. You don't have to use organic, it's just simply what I prefer. After I have the onion and the egg in the pan, I go ahead and I dice up 1 medium tomato, and I sprinkle that in when the omelet is about halfway done, and then let everything finish cooking. When the omelet's finished cooking, I like to top it off with my fats, which for me is half of an avocado, diced and spread on top. And then for seasoning, I'll usually do my normal Mrs. Dash, garlic, Himalayan salt, but I also like to throw some Frank's Red Hot sauce on. It's delicious with eggs, it's macro friendly, and it's gluten-free. So meal 6 altogether is 2 whole organic eggs with 3/4 cup organic liquid egg whites. You have your 1/2 cup of diced onion, your 1 medium diced tomato, and then your 1/2 of an avocado or whatever fits within your macros on top of that when it's finished cooking with whatever your seasoning of choice is. Please remember to comment your feedback below at the end of this video so that I know what you are wanting to see from me in future videos, and please don't forget to subscribe. Thanks, y'all.